Our hero Jonathan Harker gets up the next day and goes down for breakfast in the hotel, and he receives a very nice breakfast by the old man and the old lady, and they seem like they're almost sending him up on his funeral or something. And he eats it. It's warm eggs, some milk, and he really appreciates it. And he goes outside, and to his surprise, there's actually a group of people, of local villagers and farmers who have come to the hotel, maybe just word through the grapevine. They have showed up to see him depart. And they're all speaking Romanian, they're all crossing themselves, and occasionally he can hear a word that sounds vaguely like the word Satan, but he can't be sure. But this is really starting to freak him out. That's just understandable. And eventually, the Dracula, remember, had that note that said, "I'll be sending you transport," and the transport shows up. And it's this big carriage with 4 brown horses. And the carriage driver is this squat-looking fellow whose hat is pushed way down near his eyes, and he looks like he's in a big rush. And he does speak some English, so he says, "Are you Jonathan Harker?" And Jonathan says, yeah, I'm ready to go. And he's like, "All right, do you have anyone to say goodbye to?" And Jonathan Harker sort of looks at the big group of people, and the group of people look back at him, and he waves, and they all cross themselves again, and he leaves. This carriage driver seems to be in the biggest rush of all time. They are speeding down the road. Jonathan Harker can hardly believe how fast they are going. The 4 horses just seem furiously set on hitting their destination. And on top of it, the carriage driver himself seems very nervous. And Jonathan Harker tries to question into it, asking the carriage driver, "Why are we going so fast? Is there a rush?" And the carriage driver doesn't want to talk about it, it seems. He only gives the curt reply, "I don't usually go down these parts." And keeps going. And he just goes and whips the horses, and it's just really tough. And you feel bad for the horses, but they continue on galloping, hitting their hooves. Ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom. They go past sloping, green, beautiful forest, getting closer and closer to the snow-capped mountains that are becoming more and more elevated. They go up, gaining in elevation, going from very lush forest to more scraggly green and everglades, and then all the way up to sparse, rocky terrain, where eventually, as it becomes night, they come to a crossroads. By this point, Jonathan is feeling it. All the bumping has hurt his back, and he sort of stretches, and he says, "Okay, well, we've stopped, so we must be here," but there's nothing there. It's just empty crossroads. It's these 2 roads meeting, and all the 4 brown horses, you can see the steam coming out of their mouths and noses. They've just been run really hard in the night. The air, the condensation comes out, and it's just dead silent. And the cab driver looks at his watch, and he grunts, "We've gotten here an hour early." And Jonathan at first is a little bit flummoxed, thinking, well, an hour early, but then the cab driver seems to want to use it as an excuse, saying, "Oh, well, I guess we'll have to come back another time. It seems that, we don't want to wait. We can't tire out the horses. So we better turn around and go home. And I guess whoever's here to pick you up will have to come get you at the hotel." And the cab driver, just as he's about to try and turn around, out of the shadow materializes a different carriage. This one, black, led by 4 coal-black horses, bigger, more muscular. Boom, boom, boom. Clop, clop, clop. And they come like whispers into the light of the cab driver's lantern, seeming to appear out of nowhere. And driving the dark carriage is a tall, dark man, likewise wearing all black, with a tall black top hat on and a long brown beard. And he says, "You're early," to the cab driver. And the cab driver, embarrassed and a little startled, stutters, yeah, we're sorry about that. I'm so glad we're able. Are you here to pick up the businessman?" And the cab driver of the dark horses seems to have almost like something up with his speech. It's a little bit stuttering, a little bit slow, but very sure of itself. And Jonathan Harker gets off the old carriage and wants to make his way to the new black dark one, which he assumes is who he was supposed to meet to go on to Count Dracula. And confirming this with the new dark cab driver, the cab driver in all of the black nods his head and says, "Yes, I will take you to Dracula." And he says, "It's a pleasure to meet you." And he shakes Jonathan Harker's hand, and it is painful. This cab driver's grip is like a vice, just bam, immense strength. And the dark cab driver grabs all the bags and puts them in the cab and says, "You may leave now," to the original cab driver. And the original cab driver doesn't hesitate at all, doesn't even say goodbye to Jonathan Harker, and leaves. Jonathan Harker gets into the dark cab with the black horses and the tall black top hat man with the long brown beard. And as he gets a closer look, he sits up beside the man who's driving the carriage. And he notices that his skin is strangely white, really glowing in the moonlight, because it's starting to get pretty late into the night now. We're getting towards 11 p.m. midnight sort of time. Not only that, but he has a really hard-looking mouth with especially red lips and ivory white teeth. It just seems very unusual to John Harker, and it really stands out. And then they begin an even faster travel time. Jonathan Harker thought the last cab was fast. That had nothing on what they are hitting the speed of the roads on this cab. They are blurring by the trees and the foliage and the rocks. Things are just streaking blurs past Jonathan Harker. He can barely stay on the carriage. There's not really a good place to hold. Boom, 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 boom. These black horses are just galloping, just sprinting upwards and onwards, further, deeper into these wooded mountains. And in the background, with the night, it turns out to be a full moon. The moonlight is eerily making an iridescent white glow on everything. Jonathan Harker can hear, "Oh," wolves in the distance. And as they go further and further and further, "Oh, oh, woo," they're getting closer and closer. And to Jonathan Harker's dismay and chagrin, occasionally the dark cab driver will stop. He'll go, "Whoa!" And the horses will immediately cease. The cab driver descends off the carriage and suddenly just goes off into the woods. He walks off into the woods. And at first Jonathan Harker is sort of looking right and left thinking, what in the world is he doing? There are wolves out here. Can't he hear them? It's the middle of the night. Why are we stopping? What is in the woods? It's pitch black. I can't see anything. What the hay is going on here? But upon closer examination, Jonathan Harker sees something very mysterious and ethereal. The cab driver, black as shadow, seems to be going towards a blue flame in the woods that is very subtle but there. And weirdest of all, these little blue fires that are popping up in the woods occasionally, sporadically, as they're going towards their final destination, these little blue flames will appear, the cab driver will stop, and he will walk towards them and do something with them. Jonathan Harker can't really tell, but what's really weird to Jonathan is that as the man clothed in black goes towards the blue flames, even though the man in black's body should be blocking the flame, it seems that Jonathan Harker can see through his body onto the other side and witness the flame as it slowly goes out. This is a sensation Jonathan Harker has never experienced. He doesn't know if it's the man that's weird, or if it's the fire that's magical, or where the blue fires are coming from, but this is really freaky. And at about their 6th stop, the man in the cab gets out, goes for another blue flame, when all of a sudden, the woods seem to grow especially quiet. And Jonathan Harker sort of looks at the horses, and the horses have gone dead still. And he realizes that without them knowing, while the man clothed in black has gone away to chase yet another blue flame, the carriage has been surrounded by wolves.